All right, I think we're live now, fellas and ladies. Same thing as yesterday. We're all members only, free to the public for the early baseball slate, and then everything else will be normal for the rest of the day. If you can, click the thumbs up button. You're never going to hurt our feelings over here. Hopefully, everybody had a good night last night. Um, let's get into this one, my friend.
Yeah, excited. We got two kind of medium-sized slates today. This first one, I have a feeling I know who you like from a pitching perspective because it's probably who I like as well.
Well, let's keep it real, guys. We have a really, 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 really nice pitchers duel in St. Louis against Milwaukee. And then your options after that do take a bit of a hit. I don't think you're crazy to like Lance Lynn. Zach Eflin is solid. Charlie Morton's been a good pitcher. He's having a rough season. Pineda's okay. But if I can, I love the pitchers in St. Louis against Milwaukee. I expect this one to be another pitchers duel, kind of like we've seen the last 2 days. And these might be the best two pitchers that we've seen.
Yeah, I have zero arguments. It's definitely my first lean as well, looking at the slate. I do think that Lance Lynn is intriguing. I do think that he probably gets like a good amount of love, though. Like, I don't think there's going to be really an ownership discount from the top two guys to Lynn. Maybe he'll be a little bit less owned, but I don't think it's going to be drastic. And honestly, if I'm not using Burns and Flaherty, I think I might be dropping all the way down to Turnbull.
Okay, I get that. Completely different build. I have no arguments with that. There isn't anybody on this list below Lynn that I'm super excited about playing, but I get the idea right there for sure. So just first things first on Corbin Burns, just so everybody knows. It says it right there in the DK write-up too, in case you hadn't read it. He was out because he tested positive for COVID. He was asymptomatic, so he's been able to throw on his own, and they anticipate close to a normal workload for him. That doesn't mean that's what it is, and I think everybody, us included, will keep our eyes peeled this morning for any kind of a pitch count from Milwaukee, but I don't know that we're going to get one.
No, I don't either. I mean, it looks like he's pretty much good to go. And honestly, there's a little cause for pause. And if this were a main slate and there were like Garrett Cole, Shane Biebers of the world, I'd probably pass here, but it's not.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll agree with this or not. My top priority today is Flaherty.
I mean, yeah, I think both of them are priorities, though, honestly.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with you on right there. I just think Flaherty, Burns might throw 80 pitches today, and Flaherty could throw, 105.
True.
That's, he's been up here every single start. Flaherty had a rough opener and then a rough first inning against Miami. And he's just been really, really good since then. We're huge fans. Milwaukee strikes out a ton. He's a good matchup against them. You guys know how much I love Corbin Burns, but he is over $1,000 more expensive. And we don't know for sure what his pitch count is, although I'm kind of with DK on this one. I anticipate a pretty normal workload.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. I got no arguments with that breakdown at all.
I'm using both, though, just.
Where do you put Lynn in this mix?
I put him third, and I put him for me, it's Flaherty, Burns, Lynn. Like, it's close between all of them.
Yeah, I agree. Man, I do kind of feel like Lynn is a definite third for me personally. Like I said, man, after the first two, I think it's Burns, Flaherty, and Turnbull. And yeah, I see your points on Flaherty being the priority over Burns. I definitely get more of the warm and fuzzies with Flaherty, for sure.
Yeah, Burns hasn't pitched in a game in 3 weeks. Maybe he's off just a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's not like he's always been the best pitcher in baseball. I mean,
exactly.
He's looked like that thus far, but I mean, it's a game of inches, right? If things are off just a little bit, I mean, that could change a lot. So I'm with you.
Okay. You're probably more excited about Turnbull than I am, but I have no arguments that he's the drop-down option. I like Pineda better than Turnbull overall, but the White Sox bats right now are looking live, especially first baseman Jose Abreu, who my biggest regret from last night. I know I made it into the money, so I'm not completely upset, but that I didn't prioritize him because we talked about him long and hard. He is really seeing it. Look at these numbers the last 3 days, and this doesn't even include a home run that was robbed.
Yeah, he's making plays in the field, too. He just is on his game.
And he's really, really affordable today at $4,400 for what he normally is.
Sure is.
So, I mean, I don't think it's a perfect matchup with Michael Pineda. Michael Pineda is a solid pitcher. but Jose Abreu is a better hitter than Michael Pineda is pitcher.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, no doubt about that. It's a fun slate though, because I do feel like a bunch of the offenses are going to be in play.
Do you think Detroit gets a lot of love today?
I don't know. I haven't really. I'm not sure yet. I will say this, just going back to pitcher. I guess speaking of Detroit, two things. I was first going to say I think Eflin could be real sneaky, because he's been good this year, and I do think that's where the ownership discount is real, from Lynn to Eflin.
Yeah, get yourself $1,000. I like Eflin. I don't fear Washington. They don't K a ton. He's been solid all season.
There is no way I will use him here. I mean, I don't want to say no way, but if I'm making one lineup right now, he wouldn't be in it. I just think it's interesting because I do think that Lynn gets about as much love as Burns and Flaherty. I think so.
I haven't looked up any ownership numbers yet today, so I won't dispute that. I do think the fact that Burns hasn't pitched in a while will keep his ownership down a little bit from where we last left Corbin Burns. He was starting to turn into Jacob deGrom types of chalk.
For sure.
So I think you'll get a little off there because of that. Yeah, I got no arguments with you.
I mean, I'm interested to see how much ownership drops from Burns, knowing he hasn't pitched in a while. Because all that ownership will go to Lynn, which is why I'm thinking that.
Okay. So hypothetically speaking, if you put in the top two guys, you're sitting with a salary cap of about $37.50 per offensive guy. So the reason I mentioned Detroit, one, as you mentioned yesterday, and fortunately, I really liked Woodruff and Cole last night, so I just sandwiched them into a lineup. But I would have been a little bit interested in Daniel Duffy, and then you brought it up yesterday. Detroit's been really feisty lately, and while they're not a good baseball team, in fact, they're a bad baseball team. They don't have a lot of good players. They put up a few more runs again yesterday. Over the last 5 days, they've had decent offensive days.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't looking at this slate thinking that they would get a lot of love, but I guess so. Lynch got shelled last time out.
Yeah, Lynch has only pitched twice this year, and he's been awful and bad. So he was bad in the first start against Cleveland. He was god-awful the other day against Chicago. He's the weakest pitcher on the slate, and Detroit, as always, is really, really cheap. And if you throw in these top pitchers, you can go with whatever you want from Detroit, as long as you don't play Nunez, who, isn't on the team, and for some odd reason it's 5K.
Yeah, that makes no sense. I will say this, your talk right now has me a little bit interested in Lynch.
I can understand that.
If Detroit, if Detroit's really going to get love, which I'm not sure they might. I think you're right. They're really cheap. They've been feisty, but like you also said, they're not good. I mean, again, this is just me thinking outside the box. I'm far from writing him up as a hard recommend. You know what I mean? But that's the bonus of these videos is us talking about it.
And I would encourage you, maybe just don't play Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I get that. He's better than this, though. He's one of their better arms coming up. So, I mean, clearly he hasn't been good so far. I'm not sure how much love Detroit gets. I think we'll have to just wait and see when ownership drops. I don't see anything yet.
Okay. I don't think everybody five stacks Detroit, but they got plenty of cheap options. We've talked about Robbie Grossman. Sorry, Ron Grossman. Repeatedly over the last couple of weeks. He's not a great baseball player, but you want to know what? He's having an excellent DFS season to start the year. He's now got double digits and, what is this? 5 of his last 7 games. He's 3,500 leading off.
I could definitely see people thinking it's really sneaky to stack Detroit. Not saying that it's not in play, but I just don't think it's sneaky.
Yeah, I don't think it's sneaky today at all either. I think it's going to be significantly more popular today than Detroit ever is.
I will listen to some stuff before lock, whatever's out, and I could guarantee you right now I will hear the term Detroit is sneaky today multiple times.
And it's are they sneaky? Because they're going after the bottom pitcher who's averaging -7 today. Just for the people who set lineups in a hurry and do very little evaluation. You're going against the guy who's the cheapest pitcher averaging -7 with 2 really good starting pitchers. They're dirt cheap like they always are, and they've actually played well recently.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they get some love today for sure. Yeah.
I mean, let's see here. Okay, we'll come back to this one. As far as offenses go in the Toronto Atlanta game, which we got first, we got Stripling against Morton. Both guys, I would say, are better than they pitched this season, but I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to afford a lot of guys from this game, but I am interested in the offenses here, specifically the Atlanta side of things, if I could afford any of it.
Same.
You know, we've talked about Chuck Morton, and you guys, we're both big Chuck Morton fans. We've talked about him recently. He still gets enough strikeouts to be a DFS viable, but has he hit the end of the road because he's an older player, or is he just having a bad start to the season? I don't have a good answer for you. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Toronto's more in play for me than he is on this slate.
Yeah, he's I've been a Morton fan for
Like,
a long time. I couldn't get there today.
Mention this a lot with Toronto also. Like, they're in play every day. They're going to let down in spots they should crush, and they're going to crush in spots that they are going to be a little bit under the radar. I think this might be one of those.
Sure. I think Toronto is very low owned today. They're very expensive.
People respect Morton.
Yeah, even though exactly he hasn't been good this year, but we still respect him. Like I'm even already sitting here saying like I can't play him, but I don't really get excited about stacking against him.
No, but man, they're in play. Like they hit home runs, they run a little bit. It's a 5-game slate, so it's not the perfect matchup. I think that just them and the Braves are in play. I think the natural lean is like, do you like offense from this game? Lean the Braves side because they're facing a worse pitcher. And I agree with you. That was my first look too. I think that Toronto side might be sneakier in tournaments, using that word.
I 1,000% agree that they are sneakier in tournaments, and they are really hard to get to today. And if you want to play with the Toronto side of things, you're not going to be able to go Flaherty Burns. You're going to have to pick one top pitcher. In this case, you're probably going to want to go with Flaherty or Lynn just because they're cheaper. And then you're going to have to use, whether, for you that would be Spencer Turnbull, or for somebody else it might be Patrick Corbin, or even Michael Pineda. But it's not going to be the common build.
No, it's not. It's doable, but it's not optimal.
Yeah, okay. Let's move over to Philadelphia against Washington. We got Patrick Corbin taking on Zach Eflin. Corbin had a god-awful start to the season. Just multiple pathetic starts. He had a nice one against St. Louis, not very good against the Mets again. And then he's been real blah the last couple games. But he has given up a lot of home runs this season too, which is worth noting. I do think Philly's another team that gets some love today. I know he wasn't good yesterday, but did Alec Boehm end up being real popular?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was real popular. I mean, him and Shaw had to be the two really chalky third basemen.
Yeah, I used Shaw, so he wasn't over the top popular at all, but I didn't know what Alec Boehm's ownership was. He's dirt cheap again. He's $3K against the lefty.
Yeah, he's really cheap. He makes a lot of sense here. Philly makes a lot of sense. I'm sure McCutchen's still cheap.
Yeah, Kutch is 4,100. He was, I believe, the term cog in the machine yesterday.
Yes, he was. I'm sure he'll get a lot of love here, and it makes sense.
He does. He doesn't really hinder your salary cap, even if you're going with the top two dogs. So Boehm, Kutch, if Kingery makes the lineup, again, he's having a terrible year, but like you stated yesterday, he's better than that. He hasn't had a ton of at-bats. Hoskins probably gets love too at 4K.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. I'm thinking like, man, Abreu's price tag stands out, but Hoskins is even cheaper, and a stack people will want to go to more. So I think he gets a lot of love here.
Which makes me like Jose Abreu in tournaments even more.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago stack, I think, is in play also. Like, I know you'll say, and I agree with you, Abreu is definitely in play as a one-off. But I think Chicago is kind of in play like Toronto.
Yeah, Chicago was great yesterday. I don't know if you ended up using them at all. You were kind of digging on them earlier in the day.
I used more Minnesota, unfortunately, which they were good. But I also used that Ryu Fried lineup in all my lineups, and Fried and Ryu were really good. Well, Ryu was really good. Fried was fine. But Cole was amazing, and Woodruff was really good. So I was starting from way behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, that's tough. Cole was Cole.
Yep, he was really good.
Yeah, I definitely think Hoskins will be your chalk first baseman for the day. I think Segura will get a little love at 4,400 because he's affordable. Bohm, once again, will probably be over-owned, but you don't get, he's not having a great year, but he's a decent young talent. He's got some power and stuff like that, and he's 3K, so he's got to get love today.
He will be the chalk to third baseman, I got to assume.
I have no reason to think otherwise. And then once again, Cutchin should be very, very popular again. As far as bats against Eflin, like you're not crazy to like a Kyle Schwarber, but I'm not really looking to pick on Zach Eflin.
No, they'll be low owned. There's other slow owned spots I like more, but like Soto's always in play. You mentioned Schwarber, he's affordable. I don't hate it.
So I haven't seen Detroit's lineup out, so we can't get into the specifics of it, but they're another one. Grossman, Nico Goodrum has been really good the last few days. So if you want to ride the hot hand right here, it's not just the point totals. I love the 5 walks. He's run back-to-back days. So that works for me. Candyman's affordable. They got a bunch of, you got to watch their lineup on a daily basis. Miggy's basically free. And Scope, who's, again, not having a great year, but does have 5 hits over his last 2 games. And is, he's a former all-star. He's better than how he's played this season.
Yeah, I think that Detroit on paper looks good, and I think they'll be very much over-owned.
Probably. Though, like, if you take a look like a Jonathan Scope, he makes sense today, but I still think because Hoskins is so cheap, he gets a lot of love. So Scope won't be over the top owned. I mean, he'll get some ownership, but not over the top.
I agree with that. I mean, and then you also got Cabrera there.
Yeah.
If he's in the lineup. It's hard to get to Cabrera ever.
It is. It's just sad. Again, I know with Pujols recently getting cut. I mean, for some of you younger baseball fans, you guys don't even remember how good Miggy was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, have we talked about who's better now, Pujols or Miggy?
Yes, but we talked about it like who's less pathetic, I think was the term, as opposed to who's better.
I think Miggy's better still. I can't remember what I said then, but but you're right. Both of those guys, it's just rare you see players fall off like that and then stay playing. You know what I mean?
Well, it definitely makes people rethink those late-term contracts, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like, Miggy hasn't been good for 5 years, it seems like.
No, him and Pujols both have been, like, legitimately, like, awful for 4 or 5 years now. Anyway, moving over to St. Louis. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, in basketball, when that happens, guys aren't still playing.
No, exactly. As far as St. Louis and Milwaukee goes, we like the pitchers a lot. There's cheap bats here if you need help finishing a lineup, but I will specifically avoid these bats as much as I can and probably don't use any of them.
I mean, I agree with that. As one-offs, I think you could do worse, but I mean, yeah, there's nothing really glowing about any of these hitters here for sure. Avisel Garcia homered last night. I saw that.
I was just going to say, like, if I had a St. Louis bat in mind, it's Harrison Bader. Having put together decent at bat after decent at bat. He's got a bunch of hits lately. He's 2,700. And for me, for Milwaukee, it would be Avisel Garcia, who, after a really, really rough stretch, has the best batting average in the NL in the month of May.
Yeah, so there you go.
So they're cheap, but I'm trying not to use these guys if I can.
I'm with you.
All right, last game up, Minnesota against Chicago. Specifically from the Chicago side of things. Once again, we both respect Michael Pineda. We don't fear him, though. And for me, like Jose Abreu is, again, he's the reigning AL MVP. This guy is walking 30 and 100 every single year. He is locked in right now. I like him a lot, especially thinking about how chalky Rhys Hoskins is for tournaments.
Yeah, I like him too. And another guy I like a lot is, I wasn't even going to say Moncada, but he is a guy I like. Andrew Vaughn, first homer yesterday, had looked really good before that. Like, yeah. I remember you had called him out earlier in the year. Chicago just has, I think they're in play here.
They're really affordable.
Yeah, look at Vaughn, 2,200.
Well, what about the Mr. Speedster himself, Billy Hamilton?
Man, part of the reason I didn't stack Chicago last night is because I saw the bottom of their lineup and I was like, I just can't use Billy Hamilton. And he's like the exact type of guy that I would normally use. Use expensive pitching, stack the bottom of the lineup, and I just got away from it. And of course he has like his best fantasy game ever. If he is in the lineup, yeah, I think he's in play at that cheap. Vaughn, definitely in play for me.
You could legit stack Chicago because you got these cheap guys in here. Adam Eaton's really affordable. Now I realize he's been significantly worse recently. I know he had a really hot start to the year and kind of fell off for a while here, but he's better than his price tag. Tim Anderson, we talked up yesterday. He wasn't great, but another day in the double digits, 2 more hits. Again, none of them went for extra bases, so only 12 points, and he didn't run when he was on first, but he's only 4,900. You could legit stack Chicago and fill in with, pieces around it.
Definitely. You could also, there's enough cheap bats where you could, basically stack whoever you want and use some cheap one-offs.
It'll be hard to, full out stack
Right.
Toronto if you want decent pitchers.
Right. You probably won't be able to do that, but you can get some form of a Toronto stack with a few good players and fill in with, Vaughn and, Avisel Garcia or Scope or whoever it is.
All right. As far as Minnesota against Lance Lynn, I'm trying to come up with a case. I know we've used power lefties against Lynn a few times in the past. I do like Lance Lynn, so I just can't imagine I end up with anybody from Minnesota. Again, maybe like a Kepler.
Yeah, Kepler. Polanco has been red hot, so he'd be my favorite piece.
Yeah, he has been. I know I picked him up in a bunch of year-long leagues because he was starting to heat up, and he'd been so bad to start the year, he got dropped everywhere.
Yeah, he was really bad to start the year.
4 straight multi-hit games. That's no slouch.
No, not at all. Have to see their lineup. Minnesota's lineup isn't great right now. I don't think, pulling a couple pieces of the Twins is crazy, though. I do like them significantly more than I like the Cardinals or Brewers. And that kind of falls into that. I think Burns and Flaherty are much more in play for me than Lynn. So I could see using a Polanco. Not that I'm, going to sell my soul on stack in Minnesota here, though.
Yeah, I get that. So, all right, guys. Quick recap. All 3 of the top pitchers today will get some love in our opinion. I think Flaherty is the highest owned pitcher, would just be my guess.
I agree. Quick, you seen Tim Anderson's BVP versus Pineda?
No, what is it?
7-12, 2 bombs, 2 doubles.
Okay, well, you're not doing any work over there to talk me out of him, are you?
Nope. Jose Abreu is 2 of 17, which doesn't make me want to play him anymore, but it doesn't take me off of a guy like Abreu. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. 17 is enough at bats where I start to look at it.
Yes.
But not so many that I can't tell myself the story that he's hit into 4 or 5 hard outs, that you caught him on a slump. And I don't think Pineda's a perfect matchup for Abreu, right? The way that he pitches. It's not even a good matchup for him. It's just that the reigning MVP is playing like the reigning MVP.
All of a sudden, if you add 2 hits and say one of those balls, you know what I mean, was hard hit, you're respectable. I'm with you.
Yeah, but if that's a reason for you to want to ride a chalky Hoskins or get down to Scope, I have no arguments with you. Hot streaks don't last forever.
No, and the other way is, with numbers, a lot of times we can kind of tell the story we want to tell. Maybe the 2 hits Abreu did get were weak singles, and he really should be 0 of 17. So I still like him, but it, like you mentioned, that's when it gets to the point where you start to look at it.
Yeah, and Michael Pineda's a good pitcher. Not great, but he's good. He's having a nice season. And really the only runs he's given up all year have come on home runs. So he's not putting together extended streaks of getting hit. And if you want to go with Hoskins, do your thing.
Yeah, I would say this, though. Abreu's 2 of 17, but one of those hits is a homer. He is hot right now. And you mentioned, it's not a perfect matchup, but if these guys face each other 100 times or whatever, Abreu would homer a few times off him because he's Jose Abreu.
For sure. And then the last point for Abreu, again, is that Pineda does not go 9 innings, right? He is basically a 6-inning pitcher, unless he's going up against just pitching his best game or something like that. So Abreu gets at least 1, maybe 2 at-bats against the bullpen.
Should get 2 at-bats against the bullpen.
So, all right, guys. Burns, Flaherty, unless we get any news that Burns is like maxed at 75. Like, what would be the pitch count that you would hear about Corbin Burns that would make you want to pivot off of him?
Well, he is expensive. So, if we heard like 75, I think then you're at the point where it's like, man, I don't think he's a lock by any means.
Yeah, because Lance Lynn's $1,000 cheaper and does own probably more upside,
Like,
only because he can throw 35 more pitches.
I know Burns hasn't walked anyone, but all of a sudden, if you get into like a little bit of a jam and you have like a 30 pitch inning, I mean, you're screwed.
No doubt about it. So we'll keep our eyes peeled. We definitely haven't heard anything. They're anticipating close to a full start, but that's not a guarantee. Oh, White Sox guy, if he makes the lineup today. We talked about Grandal busting up, and he is now red hot. Look at all these walks. We were calling for this a week ago. Now he is just smoking the ball everywhere. If he's in the lineup again today, I'm interested right here as well.
He hit an absolute moonshot home run yesterday. I mean, one of the longest home runs I've seen all year.
So they've had a lot of big offensive games lately. I know he doesn't play every day, but 8, 9 over the last 4, because he's played 4 of the last 5 days. No, he hadn't played this. Anyways, 9 runs, 13 runs. Like, the White Sox are rolling.
I'm real interested to see where ownership comes out, because I'm a little torn on Detroit, because I think that they're going to get love because they're so cheap and the 2 expensive pitchers. But I also am not even sure if you like need them that much, because they're so cheap, and there's other like Philly's more attractive, like just from they've got better hitters than Detroit. It's just it's a fun slate for a 5-gamer.
Sure. The fact that they're going up against a guy averaging -7 though, I think it's enough people on them that they're going to, like, again, I don't think they're like 50 and 60% across the board, but I do think most of their offensive players will range, I don't know, 15 to 30%.
Do you think? See, I don't think it's the type of slate where like one offense is overwhelmingly owned.
I think it's spread around Philly.
Atlanta will get some love.
Yeah, they're hard. Like, it's hard to get to the Acuñas and the Freemans of the world, but Acuña's owned to every slate.
Yeah, right. Like, people, I'm not saying this is wrong, people will prioritize Acuña, even over pitchers. Some people will. So he will definitely get love. I think it's going to be Detroit, Philly, some Atlanta, and then some White Sox, because we won't be the only ones that notice how cheap they are.
Right, and like, nobody from St. Louis or Milwaukee on the offensive side of things will get love, but they don't deserve to get love. So there's a good reason behind that. And the team that we didn't really even touch on was Kansas City.
Right. We did not touch on Kansas City, and I mentioned Turnbull, but Kansas City is definitely in play on the other side of it.
They have been struggling recently, offensively.
They've lost 10 in a row.
So they've been struggling just in general. So it's hard to get excited about them. But they got a bunch of guys who are super affordable as well. Jorge Soler, Andrew Benintendi, Carlos Santana, who, again, just walks at least twice every game. So there's always a floor with him, it seems like. He's another one. You want to abandon Rhys Hoskins? Like, Carlos Santana can play.
Pretty sure he took Turnbull yard like last week or like a couple weeks ago, last time they met.
Santana's 9 of 23 with 4 extra base hits off of him.
Yeah, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, again, it's a big enough sample size that I'll put some credence into it.
I think they get no love, too, because we just literally glossed over them.
Billy Hamilton, 2 for 2 with 2 stolen bases off Pineda.
Well, that is one thing about Billy Hamilton. If he gets on, he's going to run.
Yeah. I mean, he owns upside for his price tag because he's so fast.
He's one of the few guys that will really run. Like, I mean, if he gets on, he's running.
Yes, sir. So that about covers it for today. I think you guys know how we feel. Keep your eyes peeled for any news in the Corbin Burns pitch count, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, guys.